In 1865, a .44 caliber bullet penetrated the occipital bone in the back of Abraham Lincoln's skull at a rate of 400 feet per second. The bullet traveled through the occipital lobe, through the temporal lobe, and through the parietal lobe before coming to rest in the frontal lobe just above his right eye. As far as headshots go, this one was pretty lucky. The trajectory of the bullet did not immediately destroy his brainstem, which is responsible for vital functions like breathing, and would certainly result in death. We have a few sources from the time that give us enough information to piece together Lincoln's health when he was shot. And he had a few things going for him that increase his odds of survival. The first is that he was in good physical health, having spent many years as a wrestler. One of his physicians remarked that he had powerful musculature built upon strong bones. He was also fortunate that his bullet wound caused no hemorrhage or cardiac arrest to further complicate his injury. After he was shot, he was rushed across the street to a board house, where he was treated to by several Army doctors who were attending the play he was at. With 1860 medical technology, the odds of surviving a headshot of this type are close to 0. Today, the odds are closer to 1 in 3. What if? Instead of a board house across the street, and whatever doctors happened to be around, he was rushed to the nearest trauma center where a team of the world's best doctors were waiting to save his life. What are the odds he would have survived? Let's assume it's 2024 and Abraham Lincoln is sitting in Ford Theater watching his favorite play. Assassin John Wilkes Booth sneaks up behind a man. We have a general idea of how the Secret Service would respond from the attempted assassination of Ronald Reagan in 1981. Immediately after the shot is fired, Secret Service agents would swarm the attacker and split into 2 groups, one to protect the president and one to neutralize the shooter. Now, we know Lincoln did not die until 10 hours after his initial gunshot wound, so we know he would have made it to the hospital in time to receive treatment. The nearest Tier 1 trauma center is MedStar Washington Hospital Center, 15 minutes away. With the Secret Service clearing traffic and shutting down streets, Lincoln can arrive within 7 minutes after being shot where a trauma team would be prepped and ready. The first priority of the medical team on Lincoln's arrival would be to stabilize his condition. Given the nature of his injury, a gunshot wound to the head, the focus is on ensuring an open airway in circulation. Their next step would be to control the internal bleeding by inserting an IV. Once Lincoln is stable, they'll conduct a CT scan. This will let them locate the bullet and determine the severity of the injury. This is where they'll know if Lincoln is likely to survive. If the damage affects the brainstem or there is significant hemorrhaging, then Lincoln will most probably die. We know from Lincoln's autopsy report that neither of these things were the case, so the odds of survival are relatively high. Over the next 10 to 15 hours, the surgeons would work to remove the bullet from Lincoln's skull and repair the damaged brain tissue. After the surgery, all he would be left with is one scar across his forehead. The type of surgery Lincoln will need is called a craniotomy. It involves surgeons placing him under heavy anesthetics, during which time the vice president, under the 25th Amendment, would assume the duties of the president until he wakes up. This transfer of power requires a written letter, which most administrations keep prepared for cases like this. During the surgery, a team of doctors will drill a hole into his skull and remove the bullet. Even after extensive rehab, he'll likely have difficulty writing, memory problems, and most likely not be able to walk. Under the 25th Amendment, he would be unable to resume the presidency since he is required to submit a written statement of health, which he will not be able to do. It's safe to say his days as president are over, but his life is not.